Hello and welcome to ClueCon Weekly, a special ClueCon Deconstructed conversation today. We're excited to have Kevin Ravasi from Loway. And how are you doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing very well. Nice to meet you. I'm very glad to be here.
It's good to see you too. I'm a long-time fan of Loway and QueueMetrics, and of course I know Lorenzo, and so it's very good to meet another member of the team. Excellent to have you along. Whereabouts are you speaking to us from, Kevin?
I'm speaking to you from Switzerland, from the main office. We've finally started to get back here after a few months of remote working, and it wasn't easy, but actually things became more intense during lockdown for us. So.
Right, yeah, I would imagine that contact centres moved to a more distributed model, and perhaps you had to be involved in adapting technologies and things to suit that.
Yeah, well, luckily we were ready in terms of infrastructure, and the load of requests was very high though, because in terms of new customers that wanted to, started realizing, well, if we are working from home, we need something to monitor our agents. So that is exactly what we do. So in a sense, we were answering a demand in that moment, and we were glad we had no problem doing it, luckily.
Great stuff. And I think I'm right in saying that you'd pretty much moved all your metrics onto the web, through web portals. Is that correct?
Yes, we still have customers with on-premise systems because, especially big businesses, they like sometimes to have their own, to have control on the infrastructure. They want to have, maybe they have in-house IT teams, things like that, so in that case, they might prefer having an on-premise system, but for sure moving towards the software as a service model is where everyone is going. It's a lot easier, especially if you're a small business, to handle the infrastructure.
Indeed, and Loway and QueueMetrics are names synonymous with the analysis and data around queues, especially in the world of open source. And I know that you've got an exciting presentation lined up for us about how you've been recently integrating with FreeSWITCH. But before we get to that, Kevin, what is it that you personally do at Loway?
Well, I've been a developer here at Loway for the past 5 years. And mainly I work on the flagship product. So on QueueMetrics, I integrate new features. Essentially, together with Lorenzo, we try to, every time we make a new release, to add something that is relevant to the actual historical moment, because some technologies become, for example, WebRTC is something that is we've been working on in recent years, and also we try to modernize, because this is a software that's been around since 2003. So of course it has a lot of features that have been added over time. So you want to make sure that everything is working in a way that makes sense.
I would imagine over that time that you've seen the kind of diversity of the way people communicate. Of course, started off with just voice calls, but now, as you mentioned, we've got WebRTC and also the kind of multi-mode or omni-channel way that people get in touch. How has that affected your business?
We have plans to start monitoring on omni-channels as well, especially chats, things like that. We have something in the works, but can't talk too much about it. But we are actively researching at least how this type of situation works, and we are trying to, as I was telling you, trying to stay ahead of the curve even in this regard, because of course communications, especially now, are moving very quickly.
We'll call it a ClueCon exclusive that Loway are looking at omni-channel for something in the future.
For sure. It's something that, the modern communication is based heavily on that type of.
Very much so. Yes. Now, before we move on to your presentation, tell us a little bit about your background, Kevin. What were you up to before you came to Loway?
Actually, I came to Loway fresh out of university. So I
should have guessed that by your youthful look, shouldn't I?
Well, thank you, but I mean, I wish I had more hair. But yes, I graduated in Rome in computer science, and straight away I came up here to near the border with Switzerland to search for, because the job market here in Switzerland is good for especially if you are an engineer or you are into
Yeah.
computer science.
And,
So then I had the luck of finding a job pretty easily here at Loway, and started as a junior developer, and now I'm working on very interesting stuff here. I really enjoy it.
that's really good, and Loway is a great place to be for your first role, because I know Lorenzo there is a good guy, and you're doing some like real world products, aren't you? You're making a difference.
Yeah, you learn a lot. I've learned for sure a lot, because it's good to work in an environment that actually handles real world things. Exactly.
Yeah, very, very important. Now, you've been integrating with FreeSWITCH, and I think you've learned some lessons along the way, and been able to draw some conclusions. So I'm going to pop your screen share up now, so we can have you start that. So we should have you up in the corner there with your presentation. So feel free to start, Kevin.
Thank you. Yeah. In particular, what I wanted to talk about today is how we essentially took advantage of the flexibility of FreeSWITCH to bring reporting, in particular to what we feel would be the interested party, which are growing VoIP providers. The goals of this presentation will be to illustrate what we had to do in order to integrate our software, so the challenges that we faced, and the advantages that this brings if you're a VoIP provider. So just a quick overview, QueueMetrics Live is an industrial-grade monitoring and reporting system for call center. It works with a software as a service model, so it's priced based on how many agents you have, and it's suitable for different sizes. So it can go from a very small one, as I was telling you about before, to 1,000+ very big call centers. We try to bring a whole package. We have statistic, wall boards, QA evaluation, WebRTC phone, and agent panels for the agents, and we started branching out to different platforms, in particular FreeSWITCH and FusionPBX, but we also started with Asterisk, and then we moved to other Grandstream and Switch. We try to be compatible around the board. We started working in 2003, and we developed QueueMetrics in 2005. A WombatDialer is a software we developed in 2012 that is a separate product. It's a dialer, but the main thing is we launched QueueMetrics Live, which is the cloud version of our software, in 2015, and we have been developing it ever since, until we integrated with FreeSWITCH FusionPBX, and this is what I wanted to talk about today.
It's a great track record, Kevin. Looking good.
Thank you very much. And in particular, we integrate with the Mod Call Center, as most of you for sure know, is an inbound call queuing application for FreeSWITCH, and it provides call center functionality, which is our bread and butter. It's what we work with on a daily basis, so call distribution, and that is what we try to report on, and so that is what we focused on in this integration. And working with VoIP providers during the year, we learned that essentially a couple of very important lessons, which are, in my opinion, the basis for this presentation. First one is that many small businesses do not know that they are call centers, but they actually are. Because, for example, I don't know, like medical centers or small businesses, if you have even 2 or more people answering the phone, then in a sense, you are a call center, and you can benefit from having a software as a service approach. So without a huge investment, you can have access to reporting, and you have radical improvements, even if it's a very small environment. And especially when you see your own data, you start realizing things. And that is the thing we really focus on here, because we want to, bring customers the opportunity to see what is going on. For example, as I was saying before, if you are a medical center, let's say, you have 4 people taking appointments, you would not consider yourself a call center. But all these businesses, they do benefit from tracking the agents, traffic at peak times, real-time view, what's going on, that type of reporting is very important, we feel, for these small businesses. So the second thing instead is when you start to climb the scale and going to, bigger situation with 50 plus agents, it's very difficult to keep track if everything is being efficient, if everything is going smoothly. You need advanced tracking features for your agents because maybe they want to pause themselves. You want to start tracking wrap-up times. You want to tag outcomes to calls, that type of more advanced activity tracking.
Yeah, where people are kind of, identified as agents rather than just call takers.
Exactly, because you also want to show results. You have people that are actively interested in the efficiency you're bringing to the table, what problems the call center might have, or the business in this case. So it's very important because if you're a VoIP provider, especially, you know that at that size you start getting active requests for reporting. It's not something that you propose and then customer says, yes, I would like that, but we could do without. It's something that starts to become essential for adoption. So we feel that bringing the option to more platforms is important for that. But the thing is, why we in general feel that FreeSWITCH is a good choice for us is the multi-tenant support at the basis, because of course the fact that FreeSWITCH can natively support more than one tenant, has all the tools to handle this very well. It's great for us because, of course, if you are a VoIP provider, which is the focus of my presentation, it's great because that is your bread and butter. It's what you work with on a daily basis. It scales very well at high sizes and has a lot of power and flexibility. If you, you all know this better than I do as well, but that is the thing that really made me enjoy developing this and working with FreeSWITCH.
Yeah, indeed. And that power, of course, is harnessed in all sorts of different ways, not just in the world of the contact center, but regular PBX and other use cases. But yes, you're quite right. It lends itself very well to multi-tenant and contact center work.
Yes, absolutely. That is really a strong feeling I had working with this. It's very impressive and works very well. And QueueMetrics Live, on the other side, what it does, it adds the fact that it brings reporting to the table, which is not something that necessarily people that work in VoIP have expertise on, because it's it goes hand in hand, but it's not the same thing. So we feel that with a cloud-based model like ours, the fact that you can, we have this infrastructure that we handle in terms of administration, upgrade, backups. The fact that we bring this as a parallel option, I feel is very good. If you are a provider, you do not have to develop your own solutions.
Yeah. Oh, just before we continue, Kevin,
Yes.
I noticed on that previous slide you've got both Docker and Kafka, and I'm sure most people will probably be familiar with Docker in terms of the administration of deployment and orchestration. But what about Kafka? If people have not come across that, could you just give a brief outline of what you would use Kafka for?
Well, I would love to do it. The point is, I'm not really the person in charge of the infrastructure. We have a dedicated person for that, but I could make sure he's there for the Q&A if people have questions, so we can answer questions about that, because I know there's a Q&A phase after this, correct?
Okay, yeah, not to worry. It's just a question in passing. I'm sure people can look it up if they'd like to.
Yeah, absolutely. That is essentially just how our infrastructure is based. But then what I actually worked on is more the integration with the FreeSWITCH itself in terms of data. So,
Yes.
well, essentially, just to add on this question of why FreeSWITCH, the multi-tenant support, VoIP provider, that type of sphere, we think works very well, is the fact that you want to have very efficient and precise data separation. If you have different tenants, you want to make sure that each tenant only accesses their own data, and you want the data to be stored correctly and have any issues with the privacy and things like that. So We feel the fact that we offer separate instances that are all, we upload the data for a tenant to a separate instance, so each tenant has their own instance with their own data and nothing else, is great for this because it's very easy to add or remove tenants from this integration. It's very easy to do it programmatically. We offer, APIs, Ansible playbooks for that. So it's very simple to automate, and it's good to have this very simple division of data when you work with different tenants.
Good to hear that, because I know that that's traditionally been a challenge when you've got a data feed, like in the example of Asterisk, the AMI feed, where you can go and get things. If you've got multi-tenants, it's sometimes difficult to separate those out.
That is exactly the case. That is why we decided to develop this with this, this approach that separates the data at the source and then uploads it to separate. But more on that later. Essentially, is what I'm about to explain in the presentation. So what I was essentially showing is the fact that thanks to the APIs, we can create or delete these different instances, and you don't even have to care about scale, because the infrastructure scales automatically to meet the requirements of how many tenants you have, and each system is separate. So if it has 10 agents or 100, it doesn't really impact performance. So last thing that I think before we actually move on to the technical side of the integration is the fact that it's good to have out of the box reporting. And this works a little bit in how the integration works, because what happens is we wanted this integration to work well, in the sense that we wanted QueueMetrics to be able to access data in Fusion or FreeSWITCH, or in particular the mod call center part of the system, to read how the queues and the agents are configured and make sure that QueueMetrics can set up automatically once we set up the product. This way, it's very easy to show customers their data directly. You don't have to manually input the queues, manually input the agents, and that saves a lot of work, especially if you have a big system. But also for a small one, it's good to show something that works directly.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's much easier for customers to see the value when it's their very own data rather than any kind of example stuff.
Absolutely, that is extremely correct, and that is what I think as well. Is it's very nice to because people start realizing things immediately when they see their own data, and that is worth a lot, in my opinion. And it also lends itself very well to the fact that the multi-tenant system, what we were saying a second ago, we know that especially in today's world, we have a lot of data protection laws that are coming out. Everything is becoming a lot stricter. So we have this system in place with multiple different geographies. So you can reduce delays, of course, because that is, if your QueueMetrics live instance is near you, of course, it's better. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is the fact that, for example, with GDPR in Europe, you want to have your data physically stored in Europe.
Yes.
To avoid a whole slew of legal concerns. So in this case, I think this works very well as well, because we offer USA, Europe, Asia, South Africa as main clusters for our servers, and so we assign you an instance based on where you are located. But now I think we should go on and talk about the actual integration, what we did to make sure the two softwares work together. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
So Mod Call Center, you all know, talked about it before. It's this inbound call queuing application. It's great, works very well to handle the workings of a simple queue-based call center or contact center. And the queue model works very well for all types of businesses, not just call centers or contact centers. It's similar to Asterisk in a sense that it was already very compatible with the way our software worked. So that's why we focused on this module. And with the plus, as I was saying, of the multi-tenant environments. The 4 challenges we isolated at the beginning. We said, okay, these are the 4 points we need to solve in order to make this work. We needed to translate the events from mod call centers that were traveling on the event socket layer. We want them to have them in a QMetrics compatible format. So we want them to be comprehensible by QMetrics. We wanted to split this data, and this I was telling you about, the fact that we wanted to send the correct data to the correct tenant instance without having overlaps. We want to do that securely, so everything has to happen through HTTPS. We want to send, at the same time, commands from the QMetrics to mod call center, because we want to essentially be able to log in or log out agents from queues. We want to pause them, unpause them, basically. And we want the QMetrics to configure itself. These 4 are the 4 challenges. The main component to handle these is what we call the Uniloader. And this is a simple, it's a package that we install on the PBX and sets up 2 services that both services though refer to a single binary, to single Go binary. And this is important because the focus of this binary is to be as lightweight as possible, impact the PBX as little as possible. So it's something that you just leave there, works in the background. What it does is works as these 2 services that do 2 separate things that we will see in a second. First thing is a service that is called Uniloader FreeSWITCH. What it does is listens to the event socket, listens for mod call center events, and as soon as it detects one, it translates it to a QMetrics compatible format, which we will call QLog format for as a simple term. And so creates a QLog event from a mod call center event. These events are then stored inside a file with very little processing, if not this translation and the fact that maybe we change, if you have a queue or an agent, FreeSWITCH uses unique IDs, which sometimes are a bit difficult to read. So we change the name of the agents or the queues to match the extension that they have assigned to them instead of a unique ID. It's essentially, the service keeps an internal table to translate between the 2. All this data is saved to a QLog file, and that will be the only source for our information, where we get all the data we want to report on. If this is all clear, I will move on to the second service, which instead is called Uniloader Splitter. And what it does, very simply, reads this file that we just created, log file, and using a configuration file, essentially, that contains regular expressions that the user defines, it is able to use these matchers to find the data and to assign it to the correct tenant. So for example, let's say you have data from tenant Kevin. If the regular expression is Kevin dash, it will find all the data that comes from that tenant in the mod call center events, and will know that that data is for that tenant and will be uploaded to a specific QMetrics Live instance that is different from, for example, David as another tenant.
Yeah, good news, and essential for your multi-tenant working.
Yes, and also this is happening all through HTTPS, and not all data has to be uploaded, right? This is important because you can just select one tenant out of 100 and only have one QMetrics Live instance. It's fine. Everything is very simple to define in this configuration file, and it can be automated, as I was saying before. So it's
right.
As I said, it is very simple to put systems in place to add or remove these tenants. But basically, this configuration will just need a matcher to find the actual data referring to the tenant, and then we'll need the QMetrics Live instance address to send the data to. As I was saying, is very simple and it can be done. We offer an Ansible playbook to add or remove them, and we have systems, and we are also, our support is always there to help people. figure out how to do things in the most efficient way possible. But then we need to do that the other way around as well, because we want the QueueMetrics to be able to talk to the FreeSWITCH. How do we do that? Since it's obviously not on the same network, this is a cloud service, which is World Wide Web. So we have QueueMetrics live. The user from QueueMetrics will send a command. For example, we'll say, I want to log in agent 100 on this queue, Q300.
Yeah.
This command is stored inside the QueueMetrics.
Yeah, in fact, just to interrupt for a moment, Kevin, of course, this speaks to the fact that QueueMetrics is not just for displaying statistics around contact centers, it's full contact center management, isn't it?
It is in the sense that, you know, if you're a supervisor, if you're an administrator, but even if you're an agent, you want to have control over who is working where without having to switch between two different interfaces. So we try to bring the most essential functionality as, you know, logging in, logging out, and pausing, unpausing, but also, you know, depending on the different platforms, because of course each platform offers different set of features. We want to bring, you know, maybe you can add outcomes to the call, maybe you can monitor a call, maybe you can transfer it, hang it up. You know, you want supervisors to be able to have a all-in-one solution to go directly and do what they need to do from the same screen. So yeah, thank you for the question. That is exactly the case. And so when a supervisor sends a command, it is saved inside the QueueMetrics. And when the service that uploads the data to QueueMetrics, which is a Uniloader splitter, actually starts the connection, it also checks if there are any commands that need to be done, that are pending, essentially. When these commands are found, the Uniloader downloads them and executes them locally on the PBX. So it uses the event socket to send those commands and is able to, in this way, make sure that the commands you send through QueueMetrics arrive to the PBX. This is important, in my opinion, as well, because since it's all happening on the same connection, it's very simple to add firewall exceptions. You don't have to do any complicated network configuring to allow QueueMetrics Live to talk to your PBX. It all happens through the same service through HTTPS. Essentially, we have the Uniloader as a proxy in the middle. Last but not least is the fact that we want the QueueMetrics to configure itself. So what we do is the Uniloader, again, is able to, you can run it from terminal with a command, with a specific command that tells it to, of course, you need to give it credentials, and will access the FreeSWITCH database, the Postgres database, and read the tenant's agent and configuration and queue configuration from the database. It will then create a representation of this configuration and send it to QueueMetrics through the APIs that we offer. We have an API that allows you to send a JSON configuration, and QueueMetrics will automatically create the queues and the agents that are necessary. So once you have the data and the configuration, you're done. You can start reporting immediately, and you have directly what you need to show the customer. Because as I was saying before, you have small businesses that want to see immediate results. Maybe they don't have the patience. They don't want big, long processes to set up things. They are very interested though in seeing what is going on. And at the same time, I do a lot of support. And for those that actually work in support and do a lot of setups and things like that, it saves a lot of time if you can do it automatically, of course, because sometimes
this sounds like a great example of DevOps here, Kevin, that you're developing, but you're actually getting involved in real life support as well.
Yeah, because we think here, especially at Loway, because we have our support team, of course, that works, and not all of them are developers, but I personally act as a bridge between support and development, because we think it's important, as you said, to have pulse of what's going on. And also I think it's good in general to work with your product, not only on your product, if you know what I mean.
Yep, a very good point.
Because yeah, it's kind of our philosophy here as well, to make sure we always know the because there's also a difference between working on code and then running your own code in-house, right? We want to not only, because if you're working on code, you are only seeing the errors and the problems, whilst if you are running your own code, you need to find ways to measure the physiological way your software is going, right? So you need to see how people are using it, what
Yes,
features people actually need.
very much so.
So moving on, I just to conclude, the auto configuration in this case is great if you are installing this type of software on a regular basis. Saves you a lot of time. Also, it's good because you can then maybe save your configuration and move it to another system in the future. You can do a lot of things once you have a model of how your QMetrics is configured. Just to take a look, because I'm sure I've spoken enough, maybe it's nice to see some pictures of what actually looks like once the integration is done. So in general, this is of course the raw data. This is the QLog format I was talking about before. We transform the events from the mod call center module. We get them all from there. We transform it in this file, which is our source of data, and this is processed by the QMetrics Live. This is the only thing that goes towards QMetrics Live, and it's processed to look, of course, much more readable. So we want, for example, in this case, we look at what is user customizable wallboards. These are made of widgets. We have many different types of them. These in particular are some circular panels that offer different statistics. So maybe answer calls, lost calls, percentages, number of agents that are free. But we also have in the middle, widget with custom text. You might show pictures or things like that, or other widgets that show the status of the agents. We have tables, many different options, and then the actual end user can work on these, because these are all drag and drop, very simple to create. There's no technical know-how required to work on these, and they can also be set up to act as alarms. So you see there are a couple of red ones here, or yellow ones. You can set you can set mathematical expressions. So for example, if you have more than 100 lost calls, maybe you want to make it yellow or red so people can.
Indeed. So you've got some kind of thresholds there.
Yes, absolutely. Because, people want to have immediate data visualization for this. And at the same time, we have more technical views in this case in particular. This is a real-time page. All the information you can find in the wallboards can be found here, and vice versa. But here is in a more, compressed format. Everything is together. Everything is a bit more technical. This is more for supervisors. And from here and from the wallboard, you can send actions. So you can log in, log out agents from here. You can pause agents. You can hang up calls. This is the one stop for the supervisor during their monitoring day.
Right.
We have historical reports. Of course, I won't stay long on this because I could talk all day about this, but we have 200 plus different reports, metrics. This brings a lot to the table in terms of features and reporting. That's why I was very happy to work on a new platform, because every time we get, I really love this PBX, but it's difficult to find good reporting. So it's nice to be able to, join together different worlds so easily.
Yeah, glad that worked out well for you.
It really did. It was very, very nice working on this, and especially because also for agents, you have an agent page where they have essentially this one-stop page where they can themselves control their workflow. So they can add themselves or remove themselves from queues, pause themselves, set outcomes to calls. They can, this page as well as also CRM integration. So if you want a pop-up to appear every time you receive a call, with custom parameters that depend on maybe the phone number or the extension of the agent. You can send data to a CRM and open maybe the lead page when you're talking to them automatically. You can do some fun and very useful interactions here. And in this page as well, if configured, you can have our WebRTC soft phone, which is not in this picture, but it's in this page. So yeah, this was, let's say, an overview of what we are bringing to the table with this.
And always good to talk about some lessons that you've picked up along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. These are, let's say, the conclusion we've drawn after working on this for a while, and in general, it's good to have a recap at the end to see what did we get from this. And I think a very important thing here is that often, it's interesting, this separation between, in the sales process, you have customers that have they want to see everything. They want to know all the features they have, all the things they could do. Thing is, eventually most of them only get around to do 3 or 4 different things. That is exactly what they need, though, and it's different for each person. So
yes, I've seen this kind of situation unfold on a number of occasions. And I used to work with a colleague that was particularly good at weeding them out. A customer would say, but can it do this? And my colleague would say, well, is that important to you? And he said, actually, no, it's not really. I just wondered. In other words, it was not a major requirement after all.
That is a good skill to have. A good skill to have, absolutely. Yeah, because and it's good, because when you're shopping for products and you're looking around, you want to see a potential, right? But then when you actually work, you want to have results, which often are not the same thing. So this is something that we started to see, branching out to different platforms and things like that. We have a lot of different features, but each person uses different features, and it's good if you are a provider, which is in a sense the focus of this. Now, if you are a VoIP provider, what features do you want to offer to your customers? We want to have, in a sense, a uniform offering to the customers, and at the same time, you want to be able to add features or delete them. So we started realizing that it's better to work, instead of at the customer level in terms of features, at the operator level. Let's say we have a big VoIP provider that has, I don't know, like hundreds of customers, and they handle a significant number of QueueMetrics Live instances. They use the APIs, they create their own instances, the process is all working automatically, but they are all using a PBX that doesn't allow agents to pause themselves, let's say. For instance, you want to make sure that all the customers that work with this operator do not have the option to pause themselves, because otherwise they might try to do it and then it wouldn't work, and it would look like, you need to adapt the interface, you need to adapt the functionalities to the platform and to the services that the operator actually wants to offer to the customer. So we started, trying to move a bit towards the handling things at the operator level, at the provider level, instead of at the direct customer level. And this is also good because it makes it very natural to run geographies. As I showed you before, we have, servers are physically located in different countries, and this is very good if you are an operator that operates in Europe. You want all your customers to be based in Europe, in terms of it makes it very easy to do it like this. Another lesson, and this I think is in a sense what I take away personally also as well from this integration, is that FreeSWITCH is a very good choice for a VoIP provider, in my opinion, because it's, as I said, as we were talking about before, it's very flexible, very powerful, you know that very well, and is good because we seen this action when we started working with it. We saw that the multi-tenant was very easy to handle, very easy to find out information, how queues are configured for different tenants. It's very simple to retrieve that information, use it practically to do things. And Mod Call Center works very well. It's a reliable way. A lot of people use it. It's very popular and is very similar to what we do. And so in general, everything, once we got through those challenges I was talking about, everything went very smoothly. And I honestly think that FreeSWITCH FusionPBX as well as an option is a very good choice if you are a provider, because you can handle a big number of customers in a very simple way. And that is my takeaway from all this. This is essentially my conclusion for this presentation.
Makes it sound like a very good marriage, Kevin.
It is. It actually feels like a very good marriage, in my opinion. So thank you very much for letting me rant about this, talk about this a little bit. I enjoy also talking about these things. So very nice talking with you about this.
You're very welcome. It's good to have you along. And of course, we're very, very grateful for Loway being a sponsor for ClueCon Deconstructed this year as well. That's excellent news, supporting the open source community like that. And it's good to hear not only what you've got done, but just as importantly for everybody watching, the lessons that you've learned along the way as well. So we're grateful for you taking the time to visit with us, Kevin, and we'll look forward to seeing you at future events. Will you and Lorenzo and anybody else from QueueMetrics be coming along to the live event to say hello?
Well, I mean, I'll probably attend a few events during the con. I think I've got that weekend booked as well. So I'm ready to take a look at what other people are showing. And I mean, it's always nice to see, what's going on. So yeah.
Great. Absolutely. Yes, we'll just announce the dates there. It's ClueCon Deconstructed. It's online, August the 4th through to the 6th is when we're going. We've got all sorts of things like the dangerous demos that people have come to expect at an event such as this, and also our Coda Games, two different things there, the game theory and the Get a clue-based game. Anyway, Kevin, thank you very much for coming along. We'll end here. But it's great to have you along. We're very, very grateful for it. And I hope I get to see you again before too long. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
All the best.